What's up, gamers, and welcome back for more WotC-20. Today's matchup is going to be Paintlock versus Dark Tyranitar. Paintlock is not a deck that I've gotten to narrate yet, and I don't think Dark Tyranitar is either. It might be, but went with this matchup because it's something new to talk about. I've been seeing a lot of decks regularly, so these will be some new ones. Paintlock is also just very fun. You can see the smear goal on bench has that one colorless attack called Paint. It's also a Black Star promo. If you're not familiar with it, on a coin flip, if heads, you may choose a type other than colorless. Put a coloring counter on the defending Pokemon, and that Pokemon will now be the type you choose. If it already had a coloring counter, you remove the old one. If Tails, it does nothing, but that coloring counter sticks around. It's a very unique effect. And what you are usually commonly trying to do with Paintlock is you color them purple or psychic, and then you bring in a Murkrow and mean look them to basically lock out the game and pick off their bench with Feint Attack. So all that being said, we got an Elm off for Paintlock right now. So we got a lot of bench setup going. You can see an Erica's Bellsprout, so that'll likely be used for Erica's Victory Bell for some gusting on coin flips. And Oddish, you can bet, will be for item locking with Dark Vileplume. A card we don't see very often either is a Tyrogue in the front. On 2 head flips, it will take out a Cleffa for 1 colorless attach, so we'll see if that matters. And the Sentret on bench, you can bet that'll turn into an Aquapolis Furret later down the line here. So a Darkness Energy goes down onto Cleffa. Now, for an Eek attempt, it's going to be heads. In between turns here, that Cleffa should be taking damage from Darkness Energy. Now, part of the format, playing in person, I believe this ruling is incorrect during this match. I don't think it was, I don't know if it'll get called out or not, recycle energy onto Cleffa for Dark Tyranitar, but that Cleffa should be ticked up to 10. Okay, there's the 10, and it should take 10 on the turn switch back to Paintlock as well. So, without a way to remove that energy, that Cleffa should be knocked out in a couple of turns here. A Gust brings in the Oddish to try to stall out, so the attach return will not be coming from the Tyrogue. Could just come in and Eek for free. But yeah, this ruling will be, it's something to call out. The Darkness Energy knocking out the Cleffa, we'll see if it really matters on the timing of how things happen. Obviously, a prize earlier than what I think is going to happen here would be a big deal, but it happens, so I just wanted to call it out. And yeah, we have a comp search going right now that tossed a Fighting Energy into Furret, which kind of surprises me. Not sure how many copies of Furret Dark Tyranitar runs, but pitching one would imply to me that maybe there's one in hand, or you know, maybe they're waiting to Eek if there was one in hand. But that'll bring out a fan club from the Computer Surge, very common early game to see. And I assume we'll see some Larvitar here because the main attacker of the deck has yet to show up. But let's keep an eye on Furret, see if that Sentret gets to evolve in a timely fashion or not. Whatever the other cards in hand were for discard, or maybe it was a small hand. Not sure on hand size right now, but it was either the only option to pitch or there were some other cards that they really wanted to hang on to. So looks like whatever was in hand, okay, it was probably an empty hand then. I see the Eek come off, so it wasn't a matter of Furret being the optimal pitch as much as it was the only pitch. Getting the fan club that early is just that important. So here you should see the Cleffa should be marked at 20. It's still at 10. That's fine. Murkrow comes down onto the bench. I'm trying to see some Ham Peep. I do see a Breeder and a Trader, so no. You could get the Dark Vileplume down with Breeder. There's also a Gloom in hand. Just how early you might want to item lock out here. Your opponent just eked, so even though they comp searched and fan clubbed. Okay, so there's going to be a slower Evo line here. Instead of using Breeder directly into Dark Vileplume, Gloom will come down instead. And we have a Weepin' Bell evolved on board now as well. Another Bellsprout comes down, being able to get multiple flips for the Gust ability is pretty good. This Erica's Weepin' Bell is one of 2 from Gym Heroes. It's the 60 HP one, possibly for the attacks. I'm not going to read out Fly Trap right now unless it becomes relevant. And Trader will be putting a Smeargle in. It's a full bench, so you know they're going to go grab an Evo line most likely. And there is the Victory Bell. So for those familiar or unfamiliar with Victory Bell, Fragrance Trap is really why you play it. You're not trying to attack with 3 Grass Energy for a Razor Leaf for 50. Once per turn before your attack, you may flip a coin, and if heads, Gust. So very strong ability. Obviously it doesn't work if Victory Bell is active and status affected. But that would be pretty good against a deck like Dark Tyranitar, where you could get Pupitar, Tyranitar down with some heavier retreat costs. So that is a pass over. Didn't see any energy attaches here. Now Cleffa, at least from how they've been upping the damage on it, should be knocked out now. Based on how they've been playing, it should be at least 20. Looks like both of them have missed it, which is fine. Fighting energy comes down onto Dark Pupitar. And Dark Pupitar only has 60 HP. And a Goldberry comes down onto it, covering up the Sentret there. Dark Pupitar is a pretty fun card though. Another Goldberry onto the other Larvitar. And down comes Rocket Stadium. Now that 60 HP is up to 80. Keep in mind that the damage, or the HP boost from Rocket Hideout will also increase the HP of Dark Gloom and Dark Vileplume. Looks like this is an Eek. Pass back. That Cleffa should be long off the board now. And not the largest hand here, it looks like. That Dark Gloom being stuck inactive is a pretty big deal. If you had breedered into that Dark Vileplume, you prevent not only the Stadium from coming down, which isn't as big of a deal as the 2 Goldberries, but the 2 Goldberries would be lovely to keep away. Now Victory Bell comes out. Breeder still in hand. Looks like you can just slow Evo here. Might have been a good idea to breeder the Vileplume, or breeder the Victory Bell onto the Bellsprout, just to get rid of the trainer in your hand before locking it all down with Vileplume, but instead the second attach goes to Dark Pupitar, so now it can use Rock Tackle, which is actually a pretty good move. Deals 40 damage, and Dark Pupitar takes 10 in recoil. Can't use it the next turn though, but 40 is pretty good for 2 attaches. That kind of efficiency is something you'll see on a active Meganium, for example, from Neo Genesis. Computer search again here, tossing 2 babies, a Cleffa and a Tyrogue. No need to keep those around. The Furret did come out pretty quick, so I wonder if it's more than a 2-2 line, considering the first one was pitched. A little bit of deck peep here. We can see a Dark Tyranitar being thought about. Some Recycle Energy. I didn't see another Furret. It must be a 2-2 line. Some standard staples in there as well, the Gust, the energy removals. Now, since it's 1 attach away from Explosive Evolution, we'll talk about Dark Pupitar's second attack here. And it's a coin flip, but if heads, you deal 10 damage to all Pokemon on the field, on your opponent's side only. You don't apply weakness and resistance, of course, then you search your deck for Dark Tyranitar and evolve Pupitar. So it's a cool attack. You don't see it often. It is hard to power up for, and then you have to win a coin flip, but never say never. It looks like Dark Pupitar is going to come forward. Pretty safe to do here. Dark Gloom is about as stuck as you can get. Unsure if there are some warp energies there. Alright, and Rock Tackle for 40 is going to do some damage to Gloom. Even if the Vileplume comes out and gets the HP boost up to 80 from Rocket's Hideout, it's going to be a 2-attack knockout for Dark Pupitar. However, it can't use it next turn, and it should have taken 10 damage from that. Alright, looks like the other Dark Pupitar is getting gusted out thanks to Fragrance Trap. So yeah, we're definitely missing 10 damage on the Rock Tackle Pupitar. And because it was benched big if, the other one gets retreated out, Rock Tackle can be used again, so that's worth keeping an eye on. And that Cleffa should be long gone with the Darkness Energy, so that is okay. Looks like some Furret action happening. 2 cards go in, 1 energy card of choice comes out. That'll definitely tell us if there's a warp. And it is. Now the real question is, will it go into the other Dark Pupitar for a knockout? No, we're going straight into a Cleffa, refill that hand, keep the Furret rolling. Looks like there's a, didn't see the trainer there, but there's definitely a DCE. You don't really need the DCE though, as far as I'm aware. Dark Tyranitar doesn't really benefit from it. Obviously Pupitar does. Instead it'll go into the Furret. We might see some spinning attack for 30. Nope, no attach. Alright, so no attach because the Warp was the attach for turn. That makes sense, just gonna eke it away. I don't see DCE being too important in this matchup anyway. And we still haven't seen any sort of item locking. So that Dark Vileplume staying in a rather small hand, but Fragrance Trap pulls up yet another Dark Pupitar. And it's the one with the Warp. Only a retreat cost of 1 on it though, so it can get away. Looks like hard to tell what's in the hand for Paint Lock. There's quite a few cards. I know there's the Vileplume. Looked like there was a Trader and a Fan Club. Those are pretty useless right now. And plenty of gas in hand for Dark Pupitar. I see lots of fighting energy. Maybe there's just a Dark Tyranitar in there naturally now to evolve. And instead we see a Recycle. Recycle is going to be used to retreat Dark Pupitar. That should come back to hand, since that is how Recycle works. And it goes back to hand. Okay, good. But that was the attach for turn, so I guess Rock Tackle will just take the knockout. Now this Rock Tackle Pupitar should be at 20. But that's alright. Fan Club now. Fan Club for 1 though, since the bench is fairly full. Not sure what you'll grab here. I guess it's going to be an Oddish, but you've had the chance to evolve into the Vileplume this whole time. A little awkward whenever you play Vileplume because you lock yourself as well, and every deck in this format is going to play 20 trainers. You can play fewer, but we haven't seen any brews that prefer that. And there's the Oddish. So if you want the Oddish and you want the Dark Vileplume down, had a chance to do that prior, so not sure when the lock would be optimal. Maybe after finding some energy for Murkrow. I assume there's rainbow energies in this deck, but so far looking very energy screwed on the Paint Lock side of things. Very hard deck to pilot too, and this format is sometimes rife with Espeon and Warp energy, so the lock can be easy to break. Obviously Furret and Warp is a good response as well, but we've already seen a Warp come out thanks to Fragrance Trap forcing the issue. And now we see, is that Trader into Breeder? Yes, it is. Okay, so now we got 2 Victory Bell online, so now you're going to see 2 flips a turn for a potential gust of choice, but you got 2 free Retreaters in the babies. The Pupitars are powering up and attacking, so you can't get them too stuck, and bringing up the Furret, it's a 1 retreat cost Pokemon. It can go and find Warp for itself, so going to be hard to get anything on Dark Pupitar's or Dark Tyranitar's side very stuck. And there's a Recycle onto the Smeargle, so found an energy, but I guess Fragrance Trap. First one is a Tails, second Fragrance Trap is a Heads. We'll bring in the other Dark Pupitar. And that'll get a Eek off, even though that Cleffa should be binned. That puts a Fan Club in, so probably exactly what Paint Lock needed. Go and find some more energy, get this lock going with Murkrow and Mean Look. Now, worth noting, Dark Tyranitar is in a pretty decent spot for dealing with Paint Lock. It can deal high damage, so you would really, as Paint Lock, need to have something like the Furret locked in. So that's what the gusting with Victory Bell will be for. Also, if you do try to lock the Dark Tyranitar, not only would it be likely hitting above the resistance threshold you set, but Fling Away is an attack. And that'll just start knocking out benched Pokemon, so. Tricky matchup. Going to have to lock either the Cleffa, the Tyrogue, or the Furret. And you're going to have to lock enough to exhaust Dark Tyranitar out of Warp Energy. Unclear how many they're packing with Furret. I assume it's 2. It seems pretty standard, but we'll see. And Cleffa will attempt to eke against the other Cleffa that has 9 lives. And that is a Tails. Alright. Pass to Paint Lock. So if you're Paint Lock here, you're trying to get some sort of attachment onto the Murkrow. Alright. Darkness Energy on the Murkrow. So now the lock can be attempted. And it's going to gust in a Dark Pupitar. Alright, so if you were going to lock in the Cleffa or the Tyrogue, you'd need to win 2 heads with this Smeargle, but instead they get the heads on the Dark Pupitar. Would have liked to see that on the Furret. And obviously, the type declared is going to be Psychic here. Worth also noting, I'm not sure if either... Well, Paint Lock would not run this card, but I'm not sure if Dark Tyranitar runs it, but we do have Vending Mime in format, which... That would make life even harder for Paint Lock. Energy removal comes down, hitting the Darkness on Murkrow, so much for mean looking. The hard part is really getting those paint markers down. Murkrow does not require a coin flip with Mean Look unless you're trying to use it on a baby. So here comes an Elm. Still no Dark Vileplume locking down trainers to slow things down here. So Dark Tyranitar dumping trainers where they can. And that is a full grip if I've ever seen one. No more trainers for turn based on Elm. Alright, looks like another Rock Tackle, I think. Yes, no, maybe? Alright. So yes, that was Rock Tackle. The type of Dark Pupitar was changed to Psychic thanks to Paint, and instead of being weak to fighting, like Smeargle is weak to fighting, but the attack comes in for Psychic, so it has a 30 resistance, so it only does 10. Once again, Rock Tackle should be dealing 10 damage also to Dark Pupitar each time it is used. All right, a little bit of rules figuring out going on there. Now, obviously, if you're Paint Lock, you love seeing Psychic decks. A couple of people in shop will bring those around, but those haven't been in the format as much. There's an energy removal on a Fighting Energy. And a pass. Yeah, I guess it's hard to get that Smeargle out of active. But before a pass, I guess they're gonna go for another Fragrance Trap. It's free. But we would rather see the Furret targeted. Okay, so instead of passing, they're doing more painting. Again, Furret's gotta be the optimal target there, I have to imagine. Alright, Trader. I assume this will be for a Dark Tyranitar finally. Big boy's taking a little bit of time to come out here. We will have to talk about the attacks, of course. And evolution comes down, retains. Oh, I guess evolution wipes the paint marker. Yeah, that makes sense actually. So not enough attachment for Fling Away, but Mountain Smasher will be interesting here. So 3 coin flips. Each heads will deal 20. 1 heads, and then it will also discard the number of heads off the top of the opponent's deck. So now it's super effective again. That should be a knockout. Okay, they're talking about getting the discard taken care of here. That should be a dead Smeargle. Okay. Alright, that was a Tails on Fragrance Trap, heads on the other one. Bringing in an already painted Pupitar, which will lose that paint marker when it evolves now. So again, would love to see the Furret brought in. Cleffa comes in instead. Dark Cleffa, which is why it doesn't take damage, of course. And an Eek gets off. Well, at least now, if Dark Tyranitar gets a Fling Away online, you'll probably see the 30 damage to bench go to Smeargle. So Fling Away does 50 to active, but if there's any bench Pokemon for your opponent, it does 30 to active and 30 to one of the bench Pokemon of your choosing. So very good for taking out benched babies. Very hefty attack though, 3 fighting, 1 colorless, not easy to pull off. Definitely why Furret's in the deck. Gonna try to knock out Cleffa here, and they do, so that was long overdue. I assume we will not see another tag for 10 on damage for Dark Pupitar. We do not. Counter coming out is probably to denote that it can't be used turn over turn. And a fresh Cleffa coming down for Paint Lock. Pretty big hands for both sides. The question is, how are you going to lock? I still think the best play here is to get that Furret painted Psychic. Gonna have to dangle that Smeargle though. And it is very injured, but it should be very knocked out. So take your wins where you can get them. The other thing that I think is very difficult about piloting Paint Lock is you're operating for so long without really taking a prize. You don't get your prizes until later on, so hopefully you can function fine without prize resources going to hand over time. And a long line of choices here. Is that a Misty's Wrath in hand? Oh my god. Okay, never say never. That is going to rip 7 off the top. You pick 2 to go to hand, the rest go to the bin. I don't think I've ever seen Misty's Wrath played by anybody else but me, but Paint Lock is not where I expected to see it. I think we saw Misty's Wrath actually in, there were some Gator decks. Although I don't think the Feraligatr deck, the Downpour Feraligatr deck from the Neo block, has shown up in a bit, or at least I haven't seen it in a bit. That would run Misty's Wrath. Hard card to use though. Milling 5 is significant in this format. It's all 1 prizers, so Town V is obviously a big card, but Wrathing 5 off the top is not something every deck can do comfortably. And it's an exciting card to play. It's fun. You draw 2 out of 7. It feels very good to play, but it can really screw you in the long term. So a ton of cards just went into the bin. Looks like an oak went into the hand, so that would be even more discard. A rainbow energy onto the Murkrow just to be able to get that that mean look off. But you know when it evolves, you're getting rid of that paint token. Token, marker, coin, it's purple. You know it's for psychic type. I guess that darkness energy to Cleffa was just treated as a rainbow. Take 10 and move on. Yeah, Mountain Smasher's now an even scarier attack. Someone played a Misty's Wrath. There's an oak in hand. I doubt we'll see it, but Mountain Smasher helping with that mill. We'll see how low the decks get, but deck out could very well be an option here. So many cards in hand. I don't think we've seen any Fragrance Trap attempts this turn. It's almost like they don't want to put down the Vileplume, but I think we're past when that would have been crazy. Alright, finally gusted in. There's the Furret. I'd say here, go for it. Even if the Smeargle gets knocked out, you got to get that Furret painted. Okay, big flip. That's a tail, so that stinks. Alright, a little bit of card counting here. You know that Furret can get out of active. It doesn't even need a warp. There's the recycle. That's a great option. Keeps the energy economy rolling. Alright, so 3 fighting energy here. And that Goldberry, that is a beefy Dark Tyranitar. With Stadium, it's at 110 HP, and there's a berry on it. Mountain Smasher might be the end of Smeargle. It's only going to take 1 heads. That's plenty of heads. That's 2. Smeargle goes down, Recycle Energy goes to hand, prize gets taken, and more importantly, 2 cards off the top here to mill. So let's see. You're going to get rid of a Computer Search, that hurts, and a Healing Field, that hurts too. At this point, I'd be happy to get a Healing Field if I were Paint Lock, take that Rocket Hideout down just so that there's less HP for the Dark Tyranitar lines. Quite a few cards in hand, but Recycle to Cleffa, probably gonna have to find, there's the Smeargle. Comp Search. Now that will thin your deck even more, getting rid of a Weepin' Bell and a Dark Vileplume. Would have liked to see the Fragrance Trap rolls first, see if you can tag that Furret again. You get a free shot at bringing in the Smeargle. Surely you won't win, surely you won't lose 2 coin flips in a row. That would never happen in WotC-20. That is a thin looking deck. Nice Charizard sleeves though. Could eke here, but the more you go through your deck, the more Mountain Smasher threatens to deck you. Not sure where Town V is. It could be in deck, but if it's prize, like I was saying earlier, Paint Lock not getting early access to prizing like most decks, or even mid-game prizes like most decks, is going to be tricky. And a breeder into the Vileplume. Okay. And a hollow rocket Vileplume at that. So remember, it's at 80 HP, no more trainers. So that'll keep things rolling. And we do see the Furret come in here. Again, this is where that recycle energy would have been good to press here. Locking down items, or trainer cards I should say, with Dark Vileplume is good, so you're not going to oak yourself out of the game. But we might eke ourselves out of the game. That is a thin deck, especially compared to the absolute stack on Dark Tyranitar's side. Another fighting energy coming down here onto the Pupitar, which means the Furret is going to stick around. So that's the attached for turn. No switches in this deck, no balloon berries, and even if you did, that Dark Vileplume is down, so... Alright, never mind on that attach. We're going to roll that play back. I assume it's so that the Furret can get out of active. Yep, there's the recycle. And why not bring in the Pupitar, or the Tyranitar? I wouldn't mind the Pupitar here, just because it does one-shot the Cleffa if it gets heads on Baby Flip. Here, if you're going to go with a Mountain Smasher, you do still got to get at least 2 heads out of the 3. Looks like we're going Mountain Smashing. Let's see here. Baby Roll is Tails. No Mountain Smashing here. Draw for turn. Big hand. Got to get that Smeargle going. Pretty much the bench setup you would want if you're Paint Lock. You got a Baby, you got 2 Gusters, the Murkrow and Smeargle, as well as the lock itself, Vileplume. Hard to ask for a better bench setup right now. A little bit of thinking. Maybe they're considering another line. Looks like we're going to try to gust in that Furret. We do. Off of the first attempt as well. Alright, we will be mean looking the Furret before painting it. That makes sense. Remember, just need a warp. There it is. Not sure how many of those are left in the deck, but it's a big deck. We've seen at least 2 warps, I would say. And here comes some Mountain Smashing for 3. 1 heads. Alright, that is 20 to the Murkrow. A Fan Club rips off the top. I think we're looking at Deck Out City here. Alright, you get 2 flips with Victory Bell to try to get that Furret pulled back in and trapped. Alright, here's 1. That's a Tails. Big roll here. Heads. Furret's back in. Mean look it. Well, that is a knocked out Murkrow. Attach for turn, spinning attack for 30. Gonna bring in the Cleffa. But now, alright, there's the other Murkrow. So, using Mean Look on the Murkrow there, if you switch out to try to paint it with Smeargle, you're going to break your own Mean Look lock, so... Would have preferred Smeargle over the Murkrow, that's okay. They're probably out of warps, though, if I had to guess based on that play. Not necessarily. Going for the knockout was easy enough. Alright, I see a recycle in hand. I'd slap that down onto the Smeargle. I only see one line of play here for Paintlock, and in general, the deck isn't exactly going to win by slapping Rainbow Energies on the Dark Vileplume and swinging, so it could, but that probably wouldn't go well. Alright, we're gusting in the Dark Pupitar. I would have kept the Furret in there, but it is painted, so if you can't find a Dark Tyranitar, it stays painted. Of course, it can still chip away with 10 damage from Rock Tackle. That would also chip away on itself, and it could always go for Explosive Evolution. So, Smeargle dangled in front, no attach, so oh boy. Not sure if we're aware here, but Rock Tackle is a super effective knockout. Well, that would also be a problem if you get a single head on Mountain Smasher. Now that it's evolved, Paint Token goes away. Alright, how many off the top? 2 off the top, and Smeargle's knocked out. 1 prize left. We'll see if it's a deck out or a full 6 prizes that ends this. I assume it's going to be a full 6 prizes that ends it. Hard to slow down this Tyranitar right now. You keep on losing Smeargles. Paint tokens keep getting erased from evolution. Kind of hard to baby stall your way out when you have no cards in deck. Alright, we're gusting something. It's a Tyrogue, but that can free retreat. I guess you gotta mean look it. Nope. Now even if you do mean look it, it's going to be attempting to swing at you for 30. Would rather see the Cleffa pulled in. Because Cleffa you wouldn't even really need to paint if you can hit the double heads. Actually, you just have to mean look the Cleffa in general. There's no double heads needed there. That's a lot of... Okay, 1 heads again. That's a Master Ball. That's a great tech card. I love that card. Don't see a lot of it from gym challenges. And the last card from the deck has been drawn. Is there a Town V? Or is it prized?
Big stacks.
Gotta gust in a baby at this point, but you also gotta get your deck back to full. You could Cleffa your way out of this one. Alright, here comes back the Tyrogue again. Mean look attempt. It succeeds, but that's gonna... Oh no, they were going for feint attack this whole time. Alright, well, that'll be it. Deck out is gonna be game. Interesting match, but I wanted to narrate the 2 decks. Hopefully it was enjoyable, learned a little something about the rules. That's what happens IRL. And from GamesIRL, this was more WotC-20. Thank you for watching.
3 rainbows in the prizes. Hurt me early on.
Yeah.
I was struggling for energies.
That's crazy.